She gave me 5 minutes to hand over my daughter before calling the cops. She had no idea who I really was. The HOA president stormed my ranch with an angry mob, screaming through her megaphone that my child was a criminal. Karen had already destroyed 3 families to steal their land, and now she wanted mine. But when I opened that gate and revealed my identity, her face went white as a ghost. The power-hungry woman who terrorized our entire town was about to learn she'd just threatened the wrong father. This story is insane. Comment where you're watching from. The morning sun cast long shadows across my ranch as I watched the mob gathering at my gate. Karen Prescott stood at the front, her designer heels sinking into the dirt road, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing at the air like she was conducting some twisted orchestra of outrage. Behind her, about 20 neighbors held up their phones, live-streaming the spectacle. My 12-year-old daughter Sophia stood beside me on the porch, her face pale as Karen's voice boomed through that ridiculous megaphone again. "Lucas Harper, I know you're in there. Your daughter let those horses run wild through our community gardens last night. This is destruction of HOA property, and I demand accountability right now." I felt my jaw tighten as I watched Sophia's hands tremble. The truth was, we'd found our fence cut clean through this morning. The kind of precise cut that didn't happen by accident. Someone had deliberately let our horses out, and now Karen was here with her mob, ready to crucify my daughter for it. I placed a protective hand on Sophia's shoulder and walked toward the gate. The crowd grew quiet as I approached, their phones still recording. Karen's smirk widened, thinking she had me cornered. That's when I noticed the official HOA letterhead in her hand, no doubt filled with violations and threats. "5 minutes, Harper," she shrieked, waving the paper like a battle flag. "Hand over that delinquent daughter of yours to face the consequences, or I'm calling the real authorities. The police will handle this properly since you clearly can't control your own child." The crowd murmured their approval, some nodding along with Karen's theatrics. I could see my neighbor Tom Reynolds in the back, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. These people were terrified of Karen, and for good reason. She'd sued 3 families in the past 2 years over minor infractions, driving one elderly couple to sell their home just to escape her wrath. I reached the gate and slowly pulled it open, revealing the brass plaque on the post that read, "Sheriff Lucas Harper." The murmuring stopped. Karen's face went through several shades of red before settling on something between rage and embarrassment. "Well," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside me, "you wanted to call the cops. You're looking at him. I'm the sheriff of Fairhaven, and I'm telling you right now that my daughter didn't do anything wrong. Someone cut our fence last night, and when I find out who, they'll be facing charges for trespassing and property damage." Karen recovered quickly, her voice rising to new heights of indignation. "Oh, how convenient. The sheriff is investigating his own family's crimes. This is exactly the kind of corruption the HOA was created to prevent. Your wild animals destroyed thousands of dollars worth of community property, and your brat needs to face consequences." She thrust the letter at me, her hands shaking with fury. "You have 5 minutes to comply with HOA regulations, or I'll go over your head to the state police. This ranch is a blight on our community, and it's time someone did something about it." I glanced at the letter, noting the creative interpretation of the HOA bylaws and the suspicious timing of this whole incident. Behind me, I heard Sophia sniffle, trying to hold back tears as Karen continued her verbal assault. That's when something inside me shifted from defensive to offensive. I'd spent 10 years as sheriff keeping the peace, but I'd learned long ago that bullies like Karen only understood one language. "Listen carefully," I said, tapping my fingers against my leg in a rhythm that helped me stay calm. "I catch criminals for a living, Karen, but today I think I'll make an exception and catch someone who's just criminally unethical." The crowd gasped at my words, phone zooming in for better shots. Karen's face contorted with rage as she realized I wasn't backing down. She spun around to address her audience, playing up the drama. "You all see this. The sheriff thinks he's above the law, protecting his delinquent daughter, while our community suffers. Well, I won't stand for it. The timer starts now. 5 minutes to hand her over or face the consequence." She actually pulled out her phone and set a timer, the beeping echoing across my property. I couldn't help but smile grimly at the absurdity of it all, even as I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I walked back to Sophia, wrapping my arm around her shoulders as she buried her face in my chest. "Dad, I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered between sobs. "I made sure all the horses were locked in last night, I promise." I believed her completely. Sophia had been helping with the ranch since she could walk, and she'd never been careless with the animals. This was a setup, plain and simple, and Karen Prescott was behind it. As I comforted my daughter, I made a silent promise to my late wife, whose picture sat on our mantel inside. I'd sworn to protect Sophia with everything I had, and no power-hungry HOA president was going to terrorize my little girl. The timer on Karen's phone continued its countdown as the crowd waited with bated breath. I could feel their eyes on us, some sympathetic, most just hungry for drama to post online. 3 minutes left. 2 minutes. 1 minute. The beeping grew more insistent, and Karen's grin widened with each passing second. She thought she had me trapped, forced to choose between my daughter and my badge. What she didn't know was that I'd already chosen, and I'd keep choosing Sophia every single time. The timer hit 0 with a shrill alarm that made several people jump. "Time's up, Sheriff," Karen announced triumphantly. "Since you refuse to cooperate, I'm calling the state police right now to report your negligence and your daughter's vandalism. Maybe they'll be more interested in justice than you are." But when I checked the camera footage later, I froze. Someone was sneaking around my ranch last night, holding something sharp, and their silhouette looked awfully familiar. The next morning started quietly, too quiet for my liking after yesterday's showdown. I'd left for the station early, needing to review that security footage properly on better equipment. Sophia was safe at home, or so I thought, working on her homeschool assignments at the kitchen table. I'd barely settled into my office chair when my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia that made my blood run cold. "Dad, Mrs. Prescott is at the gate. She's saying weird things about my future. I'm scared." I was already grabbing my keys before I finished reading, my protective instincts firing on all cylinders. By the time I reached the ranch, breaking several speed limits I'd normally ticket people for, I found a scene that made my stomach turn. Karen stood at our gate, not with a mob this time, but alone, holding what looked like a thick folder. Even from the driveway I could see Sophia on the porch, her phone clutched in her hand. Smart girl, I thought, hoping she'd had the presence of mind to record whatever Karen had been saying. As I got out of my patrol car, I heard the tail end of Karen's monologue. Such a shame when bright young girls can't get into any decent schools because of behavioral issues on their permanent record. Karen turned at the sound of my engine, her face morphing into an expression of fake concern. "Oh, Sheriff Harper. I was just having a little chat with Sophia about her future. You know, as a concerned member of the community who cares about our youth." She waved the folder in her hand, and I caught a glimpse of what looked like school letterhead. I've been doing some research into educational opportunities, and it would be just terrible if certain incidents were to affect her chances. One bad report from a respected community leader could close so many doors. I positioned myself between Karen and the porch where Sophia stood, my hands clenched at my sides. The woman's thinly veiled threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. "Get off my property, Karen. Now." My voice came out low and controlled, but inside I was fighting the urge to arrest her for harassment right there. She took a step back, but kept that infuriating smirk on her face. "Oh, I'm leaving, Sheriff. Just wanted to make sure we understand each other. This ranch, your daughter's future, it's all connected, isn't it? Such a big property for just 2 people. I know some wonderful families who'd love to give Sophia a more structured environment." The implication in her words made me see red. She wasn't just after my ranch. She was threatening to go after custody of my daughter. I took a step forward and Karen scrambled back toward her luxury SUV. "I'm just trying to help," she called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. After all, a single father with such a demanding job, working all hours, leaving a young girl alone so much. People talk, Sheriff. They worry. She climbed into her vehicle and rolled down the window for one last shot. "Think about what's best for Sophia. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones." After she drove off in a cloud of dust, I found Sophia on the porch steps, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, am I ruining everything for you? Is that why she keeps coming here?" The pain in her voice nearly broke me. I sat down beside her, pulling her into a hug. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You haven't done anything wrong. Mrs. Prescott is a bully who wants our land, and she thinks she can scare us into giving it up. But she doesn't know who she's messing with, does she?" Sophia managed a small smile through her tears. "She doesn't know you're the sheriff?" "That's right," I said, though we both knew my badge wouldn't protect us from HOA politics. That evening's HOA meeting was a masterclass in manipulation. I attended with Sophia, wanting to show Karen we wouldn't be intimidated. The community center was packed, with Karen holding court at the front like some suburban queen. She'd strategically placed her supporters in key positions around the room, creating an echo chamber for her agenda. When she spotted us, her eyes glinted with malicious satisfaction. "Oh good, the Harpers are here," she announced to the room. "We can discuss the unfortunate incident with the horses directly." The meeting was torture. Karen spun a narrative about declining property values, safety concerns, and the need for higher standards in our community. Every few sentences, she glanced meaningfully at Sophia, letting the implication hang that my daughter was somehow a threat to the neighborhood's stability. Tom Reynolds, usually a reasonable man, nodded along with her points about community standards, though I caught him shooting worried glances at Sophia. The worst part was watching my daughter shrink in her seat with each veiled accusation, each disapproving look from our neighbors. Afterward, as we walked to the car, Sophia was unusually quiet. Finally, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, do I embarrass you? Maybe if I weren't here, Mrs. Prescott would leave you alone." I stopped dead in my tracks, kneeling down to look her in the eyes. "Sophia Harper, you listen to me. You are the best thing in my life. You could never embarrass me. Your mom and I dreamed about having you, and every day since you were born has been a gift. Karen Prescott is trying to break us apart because she knows together we're stronger than she'll ever be." That night, after tucking Sophia in, I called Ryan Caldwell, my deputy and oldest friend. "I need you to dig into Karen Prescott's past," I said without preamble. "Use every legal resource we have. There's something off about her fixation on my ranch." Ryan didn't hesitate. "Already on it, boss. Turns out our HOA president has quite the history of property acquisition through intimidation. I'll have a full report by tomorrow." As we talked, I found myself unconsciously mimicking the finger-tapping habit that helped me think through cases. Karen was playing a dangerous game, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd threatened my daughter. I ended the call and went to check on Sophia one more time. She was pretending to sleep, but I could see her phone glowing under the covers. "Dad," she whispered, "I did something today. When Mrs. Prescott was talking at the gate, I recorded her. Was that okay?" My heart swelled with pride. Even scared and alone, my 12-year-old daughter had thought tactically. "That was very smart, sweetheart. We'll talk about it tomorrow, okay?" She nodded and actually closed her eyes this time. But as I tucked her in that night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You can't protect her forever." 3 days later, Karen Prescott proved just how low she was willing to sink in her campaign against my family. I was at the station when multiple calls came in about a disturbance at my ranch. The dispatcher looked confused as she relayed the information. "Sheriff, there are apparently news vans at your property? Something about an HOA intervention?" I didn't need to hear more. Karen had escalated to public humiliation, and she'd chosen to do it when she knew I'd be at work. My hands gripped the steering wheel white-knuckled as I raced home, already hearing the sirens of units responding to Karen's bogus call. The scene at my ranch was pure chaos, orchestrated for maximum impact. 2 local news vans were parked outside my gate, their cameras rolling as Karen stood with a bullhorn, wearing a power suit that screamed "concerned citizen" to anyone who didn't know better. A crowd had gathered, larger than before, including several uniformed officers who looked deeply uncomfortable. Karen was mid-speech when I arrived, her voice carrying across the property, and that's why I've called for official intervention. This poor child is being kept isolated on this ranch, denied proper socialization and community support. As HOA president, I cannot stand by while a child suffers. I parked and approached the scene with measured steps, my sheriff's badge prominently displayed. The responding officers immediately recognized me, their relief palpable. Officer Janet Mills stepped forward, looking apologetic. "Sheriff Harper, we received a call about a child welfare concern. Mrs. Prescott here insisted we check on your daughter." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral, despite the rage building inside me. "I appreciate you doing your job, Janet. Sophia's in the house doing her schoolwork. You're welcome to verify she's safe and well cared for, though I think we both know what this is really about." Karen's voice rose shrilly as she realized her plan was unraveling. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. He uses his position to avoid accountability. That badge doesn't make him above HOA regulations." She turned to the cameras, playing up her role as the crusading community leader. "I'm trying to save a child here. This ranch violates 12 different HOA codes, creating an unsafe environment for a young girl. Someone has to stand up for what's right." The reporters seemed uncertain now, sensing the situation wasn't what they'd been told. One of them, a young woman I recognized from the evening news, approached me with her microphone. Sheriff Harper, would you care to comment on these allegations? She asked, though her tone suggested she was already skeptical. I looked directly into the camera, letting years of press conference experience guide me. What Mrs. Prescott isn't telling you is that she's been harassing my family for weeks, trying to force us to sell our property. She's weaponized the HOA to target a 12-year-old girl who just lost her mother 2 years ago. This isn't about safety or community standards. This is about greed and power. The crowd murmured, some pulling out phones to record my response. Karen's face flushed purple as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. Lies. I have documentation of every violation. This ranch is a danger to our community values. She waved a thick folder in the air, the same one she'd used to threaten Sophia. 5 minutes. That's all I asked, for 5 minutes of compliance with basic safety standards, and he refused. What kind of father puts his pride above his child's welfare? But her theatrical performance was interrupted when Officer Mills returned from checking on Sophia, my daughter, walking beside her, calm and composed despite the circus outside. The child is fine, healthy, and clearly well cared for, Officer Mills announced to the crowd. There's no evidence of neglect or danger. In fact, I found her working on advanced mathematics and helping prepare lunch for when her father comes home. Sophia stepped forward, her voice small but steady. Mrs. Prescott has been coming to our house and saying mean things about my dad. She told me I'd be better off living somewhere else. I don't want to leave my home. The cameras swiveled to capture this unexpected testimony, and I saw several reporters exchanging knowing looks. The crowd's mood shifted palpably. Where before there'd been uncertainty and mob mentality, now people looked uncomfortable, even ashamed. Tom Reynolds stepped forward from the back, clearing his throat. Karen, maybe we should discuss this at the next HOA meeting. This seems excessive. I noticed how he nodded along with Karen earlier, but now seemed to doubt her methods. But Karen wasn't done. She'd invested too much in this public spectacle to back down now. You're all being fooled. I'm the only one brave enough to stand up to his abuse of power. In 5 minutes, I could show you evidence that would change your minds. As the crowd dispersed and the news vans pulled away, Karen stood alone at my gate, her perfect hair disheveled, her power suit wrinkled from gesticulation. This isn't over, she hissed at me. I'll find a way to prove you're unfit. That ranch will be mine one way or another. She stormed off to her SUV, slamming the door so hard it echoed across the property. But I wasn't done investigating. That evening, armed with a court order Ryan had expedited, I accessed the HOA's shared email system. Karen had been sloppy, forgetting to log out of the common account, and what I found made my jaw tighten. There it was, plain as day. Email correspondence between Karen and a property development company, discussing commission rates for the Harper Ranch acquisition. She'd been promised a 6-figure finder's fee if she could force us to sell. I forwarded everything to Ryan, my mind already working through how to use this evidence. We've got her, I told him over the phone. She's not just a power-hungry HOA president. She's trying to profit off terrorizing my family. Ryan's voice was grim but satisfied. I'll prepare the documentation. She won't know what hit her. Have you ever dealt with an HOA president who went too far? I'm curious to hear your stories in the comments below. These suburban tyrants think they're untouchable, but sometimes justice comes knocking. As I tucked Sophia in that night, she looked up at me with those wise, beyond-her-years eyes. Dad, Mrs. Prescott looked really angry today, like scary angry. Do you think she'll try something worse? I smoothed her hair, keeping my voice calm. Whatever she tries, we'll be ready, I promise. But as I drove home from filing additional paperwork the next morning, my radio crackled with a breaking news alert. HOA president vows to take action against sheriff's family tonight. The morning after Karen's media disaster, I found Dorothy Bennett sitting on my porch with a steaming cup of coffee and a look that could cut glass. At 65, Dorothy had lived in Fairhaven longer than most, and had seen every power play, every scandal, and every bully who thought they owned the town. Lucas Harper, she said, setting down her cup with deliberate precision. It's time someone told you exactly what that witch has been up to. I settled into the chair beside her, sensing this conversation would change everything. Dorothy had been unusually quiet during the HOA meetings, but I'd noticed her watching Karen with barely concealed disgust. 3 years ago, before you were sheriff, Karen Prescott pulled the same stunt on the Martinez family over on Elm Street, Dorothy began, her weathered hands gripping her coffee cup. Sweet young couple with 2 kids, owned a nice corner lot that developers had been eyeing. Karen started with noise complaints, then property violations, and escalated to calling child services. Sound familiar? My jaw tightened as I recognized the pattern. Within 6 months, they were so beaten down by legal fees and harassment that they sold below market value. Guess who got a finder's fee from the development company that bought it? I leaned forward, my detective instincts fully engaged now. Do you have proof of this, Dorothy? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I've been keeping records, Sheriff. Every dirty trick, every family she's driven out. But here's the thing. Karen's got lawyers, connections from her late husband's business dealings. The few who tried to fight back found themselves buried in lawsuits. She actually sued me 2 years ago for defamation when I spoke up at a town meeting. Cost me $5,000 to make it go away. The pieces were falling into place. Karen wasn't just a power-hungry HOA president. She was a calculating predator who had perfected her hunting method. Before I could respond, Dorothy's phone buzzed with a text that made her face go pale. She knows I'm here, she whispered, showing me the message. Dorothy, we need to discuss your recent activities. My house, 5 minutes, or I'll be forced to revisit our previous legal matter. The threat was clear, and I felt my protective instincts flare. You don't have to go, I said, but Dorothy was already standing, her spine straight with determination. Oh, I'm going, Sheriff, but not as the scared old lady she thinks I am. I've got one more card to play, and this time, she's not going to see it coming. An hour later, Dorothy called me from her home, her voice shaking but triumphant. Lucas, you need to hear what just happened. When I got to Karen's house, she was in full intimidation mode, threatened to destroy my retirement, my reputation, and even suggested my grandchildren might have trouble getting into local schools. All because I'd been spreading lies about her real estate dealings. I could hear the quotation marks in her voice. She gave me 5 minutes to agree to stay quiet about her past, waving legal documents in my face like weapons. That's when I played dumb, acted terrified, even let my hands shake as I agreed to everything. But here's the beautiful part, Dorothy continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice now. Karen got cocky, started bragging about how she'd handle your family, said she had something planned that would make you beg to sell, even mentioned specific names of developers interested in your ranch. And the whole time she had her laptop open, logged into the HOA email account. When she went to get more legal threats from her office, I did something I learned from my grandson. I forwarded several emails to myself. Evidence, Sheriff. Real evidence of her conspiring with developers, promising them properties she didn't own yet. My heart raced as I realized what Dorothy had risked. That was dangerous, Dorothy. If she'd caught you... But Dorothy just laughed, a harsh sound full of years of suppressed anger. I'm done being afraid of her. She looked me in the eye today and threatened Sophia, said that poor child's future is going to be very limited if her father doesn't see reason. That's when I knew I had to act. No one threatens children on my watch. I heard papers rustling on her end. I'm sending you everything now, financial records, email threads, even a recorded phone message she left me last year threatening legal action if I didn't support her HOA initiatives. That evening, I sat with Ryan in my home office, going through Dorothy's treasure trove of evidence. This is gold, Lucas, Ryan said, highlighting another damning email. She's got a clear pattern of racketeering here, using her HOA position to force property sales for personal profit. The state attorney's going to have a field day with this. But even as we celebrated this breakthrough, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wouldn't go down without a fight. She'd built her little empire carefully, and Dorothy's betrayal would send her into overdrive. We need to be ready for whatever she throws at us next, I warned Ryan. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. The next morning proved my instincts right. Tom Reynolds showed up at my door, looking deeply uncomfortable. Sheriff, I need to warn you. Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting last night. She's planning something big for the town hall meeting tomorrow. She kept saying she had nuclear options, and that your interference with HOA business constituted abuse of power. She even got me to sign some papers supporting her position, though I'm starting to regret it. His admission made my stomach turn. Karen was building a case against me, using the very people she'd intimidated into compliance. Tom, I need you to think carefully, I said, studying his guilty expression. What exactly did you sign? He shuffled his feet like a schoolboy caught cheating. Something about supporting an investigation into your use of sheriff's resources for personal gain? She said it was just procedure, but the way she smiled when I signed... I think I made a mistake, Sheriff. I wanted to be angry, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Karen had that effect on people, made them so afraid of becoming her target that they'd throw anyone under the bus to stay safe. That night, as I tucked Sophia in, she surprised me with her perceptiveness. Dad, Mrs. Bennett came by while you were at work. She didn't stay long, just dropped off cookies and told me to tell you the Queen's castle has cracks in the foundation. What does that mean? I smiled despite the tension. Dorothy was telling me she'd found more evidence. Probably something that would destroy Karen's carefully constructed image once and for all. It means we have good friends looking out for us, sweetheart. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. But that night, I found a package on my porch. No cinder, just a single photo of Sophia at the ranch with a red X over her face. The package with Sophia's marked photo had shaken me more than I cared to admit. I'd seen plenty of threats in my career, but when they targeted my daughter, it hit different. The next morning, I was running on 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline when the call came in from the mayor's office. Sheriff Harper, we need you here immediately. There are serious allegations about misuse of department resources. The formal tone told me everything I needed to know. Karen had made her move, and she'd gone straight to the top. I kissed Sophia goodbye, trying to keep the worry out of my voice as I promised her everything would be okay. The mayor's office was packed with people who should have been on my side. Mayor Patricia Daniels sat behind her desk, looking uncomfortable, flanked by 2 city council members and a woman I recognized as a state oversight investigator. Karen sat in the corner, trying to look concerned rather than triumphant. A stack of documents lay on the mayor's desk, and I could see Tom Reynolds' signature on the top page. Sheriff Harper, the mayor began, clearly reading from prepared notes. We've received formal complaints alleging you've used department resources to investigate private HOA matters for personal gain. These are serious accusations that we can't ignore. Karen leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. I tried to handle this through proper HOA channels, but Sheriff Harper has consistently abused his position to intimidate board members and access private records without proper authorization. I have 17 homeowners who've signed statements supporting an investigation. She produced another folder, thick with what I assumed were coerced signatures. This isn't about his property. This is about corruption, plain and simple. No one is above the law, not even the sheriff. As she spoke, I noticed her hand drift to her neck, fingers touching what looked like an antique locket. Her eyes had a distant quality for just a moment before hardening again. The state investigator, a stern woman named Angela Morrison, flipped through the documents with practiced efficiency. Sheriff Harper, did you access HOA email accounts during an investigation? I kept my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. I accessed those accounts with a valid court order as part of an ongoing investigation into harassment and potential extortion. Everything was done by the book, but Karen was ready for that. A court order obtained through personal connections, investigating a personal matter. He's turned the sheriff's department into his private security force. The way she twisted the truth was masterful. I had to give her that. What followed was 2 hours of bureaucratic torture. Every action I'd taken to protect my family was reframed as abuse of power. The security footage I'd reviewed became misuse of department equipment. The background check Ryan had run on Karen became unauthorized access to private records. By the time they were done, I sounded like a corrupt cop using my badge to fight a petty neighborhood dispute. The mayor looked genuinely pained as she delivered the verdict. Sheriff Harper, pending a full investigation, we're placing you on administrative leave effective immediately. You'll need to turn in your badge and service weapon. The walk back to my car felt like a funeral march. 20 years of service, 10 as sheriff, and it all came crashing down because I'd tried to protect my daughter from a predator with an HOA title. I sat in my truck for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel as the reality sank in. Without my badge, I was just another citizen fighting a woman who'd weaponized bureaucracy into an art form. Worse, I knew this was exactly what she wanted. Strip away my authority, isolate me from my support system, then move in for the kill. My phone buzzed with concerned texts from fellow officers, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. When I got home, Sophia was waiting on the porch, her face streaked with tears. I saw it online, she whispered, holding up her phone. Someone posted that you got suspended. The comments are saying terrible things, Dad. They're saying I'm not safe with you, that you're a corrupt cop who can't take care of me. The pain in her voice shattered what was left of my composure. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake against me. Don't read that garbage, sweetheart. People online don't know us. They don't know the truth. But even as I said it, I wondered if the truth mattered anymore when public perception had already convicted me. That evening, I found myself in the barn, talking to the horses like they could offer solutions. It was something I'd started doing after my wife died, when the silence of the house became too much to bear. I promised her I'd protect Sophia, I said to the old mare, my fist clenched around the crumpled photo of my wife I kept in my wallet. Early promised I'd keep her safe, give her a good life, but I'm failing. Karen's winning, and I don't know how to fight someone who's turned the whole system against us. The horse nickered softly, and I almost laughed at myself. Here I was, the suspended sheriff, reduced to seeking counsel from livestock. Rock bottom felt like this, alone in a barn, badge gone, daughter crying, enemies circling. Ryan showed up around sunset looking as defeated as I felt. "Lucas, I'm sorry, I tried to speak up at the meeting, but they shut me down. Said I was too close to you to be objective." He handed me a beer and we sat on the porch in silence for a while. "You know what kills me?" I finally said, my voice rough. "I've spent my whole career believing in this system, thinking that if you do the right thing, follow the rules, justice prevails. But Karen's shown me how naive that was. She's using the very rules I swore to uphold as weapons against me." Ryan nodded grimly. "I failed like this once before back in the city. Stayed quiet when I should have acted, and a good cop lost everything. I swore I'd never let it happen again, but here we are." Later that night, I stopped by the HOA office to drop off some paperwork they'd demanded. Through the window, I saw Karen alone at her desk, and the scene stopped me cold. She was staring at that locket again, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a photo of a man I assumed was her late husband. Her lips moved like she was talking to him, and I heard her whisper through the cracked window, "This town is all I have left, Robert. All that's left of us. I won't let them take it away." For a moment, she looked less like a predator and more like a broken woman, clinging to control because she'd lost everything else. Then she snapped the locket shut and her face hardened again, returning to the quarterly reports with mechanical precision. "I used to think I was strong," I told Ryan when I got back home. "Thought I could handle anything. Marine Corps, 10 years running this department, losing Elizabeth. I survived it all, but this, watching them paint me as a corrupt cop, seeing Sophia cry because of online trolls, feeling this helpless? I failed her, Ryan. Failed the one person I swore to protect above all others." The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of a father's worst fear. In just 5 minutes at that meeting, Karen had destroyed a career I'd spent 20 years building. 5 minutes to break me. That seemed to be her magic number. That night, after Ryan left, I stood in Sophia's doorway watching her sleep. She'd cried herself into exhaustion, her phone still clutched in her hand. I gently took it, seeing the screen still open to a particularly nasty comment thread about whether I was fit to raise a child alone. Each cruel word felt like a knife, not because it hurt me, but because it hurt her. "Am I causing Dad to lose everything?" was her last search. My heart shattered. I closed the door quietly and went to my office, staring at the suspension letter. Tomorrow, suspended or not, I was going to fight back. Karen might have won this battle, but the war wasn't over. But as I walked into the town meeting the next evening, my resolve wavering with each hostile stare from my neighbors, Karen stood at the podium, holding up a new document, smirking. "This changes everything, Sheriff." Or should I say, former Sheriff Harper? The Fairhaven Community Center was standing room only, the air thick with anticipation and the smell of brewing conflict. I stood at the back, no longer in uniform but in civilian clothes that felt foreign after years of wearing a badge. Karen commanded the podium like a general preparing for victory, her perfect suit and practiced smile masking the venom underneath. Behind her, the HOA board sat in judgment, including Tom Reynolds, who couldn't meet my eyes. The live stream cameras were rolling, multiple phones held high to capture what Karen had advertised as a critical announcement about community safety and leadership. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Karen began, her voice carrying that false sweetness that made my skin crawl. "I know these have been difficult days for our community, discovering corruption where we least expected it. But tonight, I have news that will help us move forward." She held up a thick manila envelope, like a trophy. "I've been in contact with state authorities about the abuse of power we've witnessed. This document contains sworn statements from 17 homeowners detailing Sheriff Harper's intimidation tactics, his misuse of police resources, and, most disturbing, concerns about the welfare of his daughter." The crowd murmured, some nodding along while others looked uncomfortable. I saw Dorothy near the front, her face a mask of controlled fury. Sophia stood beside me, her hand gripping mine, so tightly I could feel her nails digging in. I'd tried to convince her to stay home, but she'd insisted on coming. "I'm not letting her win by hiding," she'd said with the determination that reminded me painfully of her mother. Now, watching Karen weaponize our neighbors' fears against us, I wondered if I'd made a mistake letting her witness this character assassination. Furthermore, Karen continued, warming to her theme, I've prepared a comprehensive plan to help the Harper family transition. Sometimes, when someone is struggling, the kindest thing we can do is help them find a better situation. She clicked a button and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. It showed local real estate listings, family support resources, and, most chillingly, information about proper childhood development environments. The implication was clear. She wasn't just after my ranch anymore. She was building a case to have Sophia taken away from me. I've spent years building this community into something special, something meaningful. I won't let one man's ego destroy what we've created. I felt Sophia trembling beside me and was about to leave when Dorothy suddenly stood up. I have something to say, she announced, her voice cutting through Karen's presentation. Karen's smile flickered but held. Mrs. Bennett, please wait for the public comment period. We need to maintain order. But Dorothy was already moving toward the podium, and something in her expression made people step aside. No, Karen, you've had your say for 3 years, now it's my turn. She pulled out her phone and connected it to the community center's audio system, with surprising tech savvy for her age. Folks, before you condemn Sheriff Harper, you need to hear something, Dorothy said, and suddenly Karen's voice filled the room from a recording. That old fool Dorothy won't be a problem much longer. Once I'm done with Harper, she's next. Maybe a nice lawsuit about her fence violations, or better yet, questions about her mental competency. These old people don't realize their time is over. This is my town now. The recording continued, Karen's voice becoming increasingly vicious as she detailed her plans to systematically drive out anyone who opposed her. The crowd's murmur turned to gasps as Karen's true nature was laid bare for all to hear. Karen's face went from red to purple to white in the span of seconds. That's taken out of context. That's a legal recording. Sheriff Harper put her up to this. But Dorothy wasn't done. She pulled out a folder of her own. Copies of the emails she'd forwarded from Karen's computer. Illegal. Like using HOA positions to get kickbacks from developers? Like the $40,000 you got for forcing the Martinez family to sell? Like the $15,000 from the Elm Street development? She started distributing copies to stunned board members. I sent all of this to the state attorney's office. Real corruption, not the fairy tales you've been spinning about Sheriff Harper. The room erupted into chaos. Board members were shouting questions, demanding to see the evidence. Tom Reynolds stood up, his face pale. Karen, is this true? Have you been taking money? Karen rounded on him viciously. You signed the papers, Tom. You're in this as deep as I am. But Tom shook his head, finally finding his spine. No, I signed papers about an investigation. I didn't sign up for this. You're not just wrong, Karen. You're a threat to everything this community stands for. The live stream cameras captured every moment as Karen's carefully constructed world began to crumble. She grabbed the microphone, desperate to regain control. This is all lies, fabrications. I'm calling the police right now to arrest Dorothy Bennett for theft and Sheriff Harper for conspiracy. She pulled out her phone dramatically, but before she could dial, Sophia stepped forward. My heart stopped as my 12-year-old daughter walked to the front of the room, her phone in her hand. I want everyone to hear something too, she said, her voice small but steady. She looked at me, question in her eyes, and I nodded. I'd taught her to stand up to bullies, and now she was teaching me what real courage looked like. The room fell silent as she connected her phone to the system Dorothy had just used. Karen's voice filled the room again, but this time from a different recording. Listen carefully, little girl. Your daddy's gonna lose everything, and when he does, you'll be all alone. Maybe I'll take care of you myself. Wouldn't that be nice? Living in a proper home instead of that dirty ranch. Of course, we'd have to sell that land first. Such valuable property, wasted on cows and horses. In 5 minutes, your whole life is going to change, and there's nothing your pathetic father can do about it. Sophia's voice came next, shaky with fear. Why are you doing this to us? Karen's response was chilling. Because I can, sweetie. Because this town belongs to me, and anyone who doesn't understand that needs to be taught a lesson. The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone started slow clapping. It was Officer Mills, still in uniform despite the late hour. Well, that sounds like harassment of a minor, criminal threats, and conspiracy to me. She stepped forward, producing handcuffs. Karen Prescott, you're under arrest. Karen backed away, her perfect composure finally completely shattered. No, you can't. I built this community. I made it worth something. These people are nothing without me. She stumbled backward, catching her designer heel on a chair leg. The ripping sound of expensive fabric filled the room as she went down hard, her skirt tearing up the side. She scrambled to her feet, hair wild, makeup smeared, looking nothing like the composed HOA president who terrorized the neighborhood. "He's the criminal. He's the one who should be arrested. I am the victim here," Karen screamed as Officer Mills cuffed her. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she was led away, still ranting about lawsuits and revenge. Several people were recording, and I knew this footage would be all over social media within minutes. The mighty HOA queen was reduced to a shrieking mess in a torn skirt, finally facing consequences for her reign of terror. As they led her out, I noticed her locket had come open in the struggle, the photo of her husband visible. Even in defeat, she clutched at it desperately. As the chaos died down, Sophia buried her face in my chest. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Dad. I was scared she'd hurt you if she knew I recorded her." I held her tight, feeling the tension of the past weeks finally start to ease. "You were brave, sweetheart. Braver than any of us." Dorothy approached, patting Sophia's shoulder gently. "Your mama would be proud, honey. You've got her courage and your daddy's sense of justice." But as we left the meeting, finally feeling like we could breathe again, a cop pulled me aside and whispered, "Karen's not done. She's planning something big from lockup. Watch your back, Sheriff." The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing like an angry hornet's nest. Overnight, the videos from the town meeting had exploded across social media. "Corrupt HOA president exposed by 12-year-old" was trending, with millions of views on the clips of Karen's meltdown. Comments poured in from around the world, people sharing their own HOA horror stories and cheering for Sophia's bravery. I found my daughter at the kitchen table, staring at her phone with wide eyes. "Dad, people are calling me a hero. Someone even started a petition to make me an honorary mayor." I ruffled her hair, feeling a mix of pride and concern. "Just remember, sweetheart, real heroes don't do it for the fame." Mayor Daniels called before I'd finished my coffee. "Lucas, I owe you an apology. The city council held an emergency meeting this morning. Your suspension has been lifted, effective immediately. We'd like you back at work as soon as possible." Her voice was heavy with regret. "We should have looked deeper into Karen's accusations. The evidence Dorothy and your daughter provided shows a pattern of corruption we completely missed." I accepted her apology gracefully, though part of me wanted to point out how easily they'd thrown away 20 years of dedicated service. But right now, I had a badge to reclaim and a community to serve. The sheriff's station erupted in cheers when I walked in that afternoon. Officers who'd been forced to stay silent during my suspension lined up to shake my hand. Ryan had decorated my office with a banner reading, "Justice better late than never," and a cake shaped like handcuffs. "Welcome back, boss," he said, his relief evident. "Karen's been busy in lockup. She's already through 2 lawyers who quit after hearing the evidence. Turns out threatening a child on tape isn't a great legal strategy." He handed me a thick file. "The state attorney wants to meet with you. They're building a RICO case. Karen's property scheme goes back years." But Karen wasn't done fighting. That evening, Dorothy called with urgent news. "Lucas, you need to see this. Karen somehow got a phone in jail and posted a video. She's claiming she's a victim of a conspiracy, that you planted evidence and coached Sophia to lie." I pulled up the video, watching Karen in her orange jumpsuit, trying to spin her narrative one more time. But the comments section told the real story. Her former victims were coming forward, sharing their experiences, posting documents. The Martinez family had uploaded their entire file showing how Karen had systematically destroyed them. The digital mob that had once supported her had turned completely. Dorothy wasn't just watching from the sidelines either. The 70-year-old had become an unlikely social media sensation, her takedown of Karen having gone viral. "I've got one more surprise for that witch," she told me with a grin. She'd discovered Karen's old media interviews from when she first became HOA president, full of promises about transparent leadership and putting families first. Dorothy had created a masterful video compilation, intercutting Karen's promises with her threatening recordings. The final shot was her arrest, mascara running, skirt torn, screaming about being a victim, while the audio played of her saying, "I am the victim here," to my daughter. 3 days later, I stood in a packed courtroom as Karen faced a judge for her bail hearing. She looked smaller in her jumpsuit, her perfect appearance stripped away. Her latest lawyer argued for release, claiming she posed no threat, but the prosecutor came prepared. They played Sophia's recording, showed the financial documents, and revealed something new. Karen had been sending threatening letters from jail to witnesses. The judge's expression grew stonier with each piece of evidence. "Bail is denied," he announced. "Ms. Prescott has shown a pattern of intimidation that continues even from custody. Karen's scream of outrage echoed through the courtroom as guards led her away. The response to our story was overwhelming. Letters poured in from across the country, sharing similar HOA horror stories. Child advocacy groups reached out, wanting Sophia to speak about standing up to adult bullies. The ranch's mailbox overflowed with supportive messages and drawings from children. One morning, I found Sophia reading them at the kitchen table, tears in her eyes. "Dad, this girl from Texas says our story gave her courage to report her teacher, who was bullying her. We actually helped someone." I hugged her close. "We helped a lot of people, sweetheart. You showed them that bullies can be beaten, no matter how powerful they seem." 6 months later, Karen Prescott was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for racketeering, extortion, and harassment of a minor. She'd finally found a community where her bullying tactics wouldn't work, one with steel bars and orange uniforms. Dorothy had taken over as interim HOA president, immediately dissolving Karen's ridiculous rules. "Paint your fences any color you want," she'd announced to thunderous applause. Tom Reynolds, genuinely reformed, proposed new transparency measures. The town was healing, learning from its mistakes. But the best part was what we decided to do with our ranch. "What if we started a riding program for kids?" I suggested to Sophia one evening as we watched the sunset. "A place where they can learn confidence, stand up for themselves, be free to be kids." Her eyes lit up with excitement. "Can we call it Freedom Ranch, for kids who need to learn? They don't have to be afraid." I thought of my late wife's words, "Protect Sophia, whatever it takes," and realized we'd done more than that. We'd protected each other and our entire community. "Freedom Ranch it is," I agreed, already imagining children's laughter mixing with the sound of horse hooves. The grand opening was on a perfect spring day, with Dorothy cutting the ribbon and Sophia leading the first group of eager kids to meet the horses. The local news covered it, but this time the cameras captured joy instead of conflict. "From HOA nightmare to community dream," the reporter said. "I stood watching my daughter teach a shy boy how to approach a horse, her patience and kindness shining through. We'd won more than a battle against a corrupt HOA president. We'd won our lives back and created something beautiful from the ashes of Karen's reign of terror." And as the town cheered at the ribbon cutting, kids laughing and horses neighing in the background, I looked at Sophia and thought, this isn't the end of our fight, it's just the beginning of something beautiful.